Steve, I'll start with you. Just the news on Hong Kong. The fact that this came from Wen Weibo, I mean, a pro-Beijing paper does add a bit more credence to this, right?
I would think so. Pro-Beijing, and of course, well, there's no opposition newspapers really anymore in Hong Kong, right? But they go in a different direction there. But it is pro-Beijing, and it is essentially state-owned. So perhaps lending some credence, as you said. And also, again, they're citing unidentified sources as saying, that this potentially could be the next step for Hong Kong's easing. Fewer testing requirements when you come in, because right now when you come into Hong Kong you have one PCR test on arrival and then one on so-called day 2, which is actually the third day, and then 7 rapid antigen tests every day for 7 consecutive days. And I know.
You've been through it all.
I've been through it all. If you miss that second one, you will get an envelope, a manila envelope in the mail saying you have violated it and you are subject to a $50,000 fine and up to 6 months in prison.
Yikes.
So, they might relax some of that, I would assume, and as well as the mask.
There does feel to be a more relaxed attitude, though, on the streets of Hong Kong, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Yeah, that would be anecdotal evidence, obviously.
Purely purely
everyone
speculation.
still has to wear a mask, so you can't really read that on their faces. But I think there is more of a call for it in Hong Kong, given what's happening in mainland China.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Hong Kong served as a test bed for relaxation through this Omicron period, where the spike in cases was not huge in Hong Kong after they essentially relaxed in October. Taiwan has not necessarily seen a huge spike since they relaxed in October, and now China is relaxing.
Iris, okay, is this heralding now the start of what was right at the beginning of this pandemic, the vaunted idea of herd immunity?
Yes, so what China is trying to achieve, I believe, is that when they try to relax the COVID measures without using the green code anymore in public transportations and other service area like shopping malls, this will actually induce herd immunity. We have to remember that China has been protected the public for so long. There has been no herd immunity in China. So this is going to start. And this process is not going to be smooth. It will be quite difficult at the beginning because the residents will be very cautious. We read news like people are stocking up medicines and oxygen flask. So this kind of things.
Wow.
So it begs the question, where does the growth come? Where do we get that 5% growth from? Because when I first reported this yesterday with the new slew of measures, I thought, okay, well, here's the ticket for the consumer to come back. But I guess, 24 hours later, we're going, well, people are still hesitant to go out, even though they don't have those PCR requirements or the code on their app to go out. People are hesitant, aren't they? Where are they? Iris, maybe you can address that. Where are they going to find this growth target of 5%? They've already chopped them down at the knees at the platform companies. They've chopped down property.
Yeah.
Where are they going to find it?
Come on,
Very
Iris.
Good. Very good question. So that's why I am actually revising down my GDP forecast from last month's forecast. So for this year, I revised down from 3.3% to 2.06%.
Wow.
Even a negative year-on-year, a slight negative year-on-year in fourth quarter, because we all know that it is almost written off because of retail sales. And then for the first quarter, it's not pretty good, 3-point-something% year-on-year. And therefore, I believe that all the growth will actually depends on how speedy the infrastructure spending will be. And because the government don't need to spend any more on COVID tests and all that, so there is extra room on fiscal budget on R&D spending, technology spending, and all this. So don't think too much about consumption yet.
And we saw that 9% drop in exports yesterday in the China trade numbers, which goes to show a slowing economy externally as well.
Yes.
So you can't exactly rely on domestic growth to take the economy out of the hole.
Yes, the manufacturing sector in 2023 is not going to look good because of the very weak export sector. We expect likely recession in US and Europe. And therefore, I think that manufacturing sector's jobs and wages will be not pretty good. So that's why I believe that it is solely infrastructure, physical infrastructure and software infrastructure.
So it was essential that the Chinese government do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily tied directly to the rise in street protests, and that it was a necessity because of the economy.
For the economy's sake, the government has to do this.
Yeah, but that's what people have been saying for ages, haven't they? Ultimately, that they're sacrificing the economy for this this virus or zero COVID policy.
Yeah, and herd immunity takes time. It's not immediate. So we can't really be too optimistic on retail sales to boost growth in 2023. It may happen in the second half, but not really in the first half.
So if what do you see as the biggest kind of impact on the global economy when China does reopen fully then? I think you were quoted in a story that Engle wrote about how much inflation can pick up. So can it really come back in a big way?
Yes, it can. But what time it comes back is the real question. So the timing is very important. Full reopening. That means opening the borders with international. So just like Hong Kong, we are not full reopening on the international borders. For example, we have 0+3 quarantine, which actually means that Hong Kong people will go outside and not really attracting visitors into Hong Kong. So we see news that says Hong Kong may remove masks. Wearing masks in the public. I think the essential things is to remove 0+3 to get Hong Kong run again. So China has to do this, but the first thing is that it has to get herd immunity first. Then it reopens.
I mean, if you remove COVID testing at the airport, that more or less perhaps presages exactly getting rid of 0+3 could be the corollary of that. But I want to get an idea of how much pent-up demand there is. You alluded to this already, and how that will fit into your growth forecast for the whole of next year, for instance.
So if you're talking about Hong Kong, then...
No, I'm talking about mainland China.
Mainland China. Okay. For mainland China, I think that it depends on consumptions a lot because we have seen absence of some consumptions for so long. And we are not going to see it coming back in the first half. So we look for second half.
And quickly, the border, the mainland border, very quickly, that's going to be very important for Hong Kong.
May not see this in 2023.